Muito boa tarde a todos. O Piano e Suas Perspectivas é um programa da Escola de Música e Artes Cênicas, Reitoria Digital da Universidade Federal de Goiás e Mississippi State University, com apoio da Fundação para Ciência e Tecnologia de Portugal, Centro de Estudos de Sociologia e Estética Musical da Universidade Nova de Lisboa, Centro de Estudos Brasileiros, Rádio Universitária e Rádio Brasil Central FM. Nossa proposta é levar a todos os interessados assuntos relacionados à importância da música e seu papel na sociedade. Muito obrigada a todos vocês pela audiência. A nossa entrevistadora de hoje será a doutora Rosângela Seba, coordenadora do Departamento de Piano da Mississippi State University, responsável também pela parceria nesse programa. The Piano and its Perspectives is a program of the School of Music and Performing Arts, Digital Department of the Federal University of Goiás and the Mississippi State University, with support from the Foundation for Science and Technology of Portugal, Center for the Studies and Sociology and Musical Aesthetics of the New University of Lisbon, Center for Brazilian Studies, Rádio Universitária, and Radio Brasil Central FM. Our proposal is to bring to all those interested issues related to the importance of music and its role in society. Thanks so much to all of you for the audience. Today's interviewer will be Dr. Rosângela Seba, coordinator of the Mississippi State University Piano Department, responsible for the partnership in this program. Dr. Rosângela Seba, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Obrigado por me ter como uma partner desse projeto. And we are going to invite right now my dear friend Adonis Gonzalez. Adonis has a degree in piano from Cuba. We were classmates at University of Southern Mississippi, and he has a doctorate degree from Rutgers University. Welcome, Adonis, to our program.
Thank you for having me in your wonderful program.
Andrea, can we start with the video? This is a video, and we're going to talk about the project later.
Sure. Thank you, Adonis.
Andrea, there we go. I'm not sure, Andrea, if we can hear the sound right now. It did work before, but I don't think it's working right now. All right, well, we can talk about it. So this is a CD that you did with Rey Production, Adios a Cuba. And it has Cuban music, but also there were other recordings of you, right? Can you talk a little bit about that project, Adonis?
That project is a very special project for me because there is a before and after, and it came by accident. Actually, the project was not a CD. It wasn't conceived as a CD. It was just a video, a promotional video that the producer wanted to make, and the project started growing and growing. Meaning, it was going to be maybe one piece, then two pieces, then three, then in a small conservatory. Then it ended being in this huge space, and it's a place in Germany where they actually do commercials for TV. And we did the project, and I recorded a few pieces by Rachmaninoff and Chopin Etude, and some of my own arrangement of some of the Cuban music that I have been playing for such a long time by Ernesto Lecuona, and also by another Cuban composer that his name is Ignacio Cervantes. And we let one of our friends see it, and she said, if you rip off the audio of this recording, you can probably make a CD and send it to the Latin Grammys. And we were, no, there is no way. I mean, it's not the same as recording in a studio. But finally, we got our minds around it, and we did it. I had to add a few pieces for the CD because it's going to be rather short. So there are two improvisations. One is epilogue, and the other one is a prologue.
Yeah.
Prologue and epilogue in Spanish. And we sent it, and it got nominated for the Latin Grammys, but it was like a total accident. I mean, you can conceive.
So, but there's a video also, as well as a CD. The video was the nominated. Okay,
the video was the original idea. Let's make a video, a promotional video. Then we recorded all those pieces. Then we said, well, it looks so nice. Let's add an interview to the video. So the video became now, 40 minutes. Because the playing along was just to record a few pieces for promotion in Europe.
Yeah, you also had some percussionists joining you, right?
Yes, there is one of the pieces, Danza de los Ñáñigos. We always dream of doing it with percussion. So the producer, who is also a percussionist, made the arrangement for the instrument, because those Afro-Cuban dances are inspired by Afro-Cuban rhythms with the original Afro-Cuban instruments. And people around the world play that music, but they may not know exactly what instruments are the ones that the composer had in mind, because they don't know Afro-Cuban culture. So it was a way to illustrate that and amplify a little bit the concept of the video, to have some variety.
Let's see if we can go back to the video and see if it's going to work now, the audio.
Ich bin froh, dass ich heute die Gelegenheit habe, die Musik, die er macht, wie er das macht, auch auf Bilder zu bringen. Videos zu machen, wo es live gespielt wird. Nicht nur geht es hier um die Musik, sondern auch um Bild. Der Musik zu geben etwas Neues, etwas Klares, etwas, was Bewegung hat. Also dieses Live-Gefühl zu behalten mit guter Kamera und auch guter Musik. Ich fand immer die kubanische klassische Musik sehr besonders für mich. Vor allem diese afrikanische Seite. Habe immer dabei gehört, wie Trommeln klingen. Und das war meine Aufgabe auch als Musiker, das Arrangement zu machen. Ist eine sehr gute Sache. Ich bin froh, dass wir das gemacht haben.
Bravo. Is this the last one, the Cervantes, Adiós la Cuba?
Yes, that's what gives name to the project. That also we also were wondering about what number should that have, and the project. And then we realized that all the composers that I played were people that emigrated from their native country, like Chopin died in France, and Lecuona died in the United States. Cervantes at some point was not allowed to go back to Cuba, so he was in the United States. Rachmaninoff died in California. I mean, we said, well, something about leaving a country. How about Adios a Cuba?
Yeah.
And the project was magic. I mean, it was incredible that every single piece and every single thing that happened contributed to the uniqueness and united every idea. I mean, the composers, the moment, the pieces, and it was not planned that way. It just happened that way.
And it's amazing that you're talking about the influence of Afro-Cuban influence in music. This happened in Brazil too, Afro-Brazilian influence in classical music. And I just gave a lecture Saturday about the chorinho, which is really a ragtime influenced by the machixe and lundu, batuque, and all those African rhythms. Yeah, so it is very clear that when you play those instruments, percussive instruments could easily be added to that music. It is the true African music. So Adonis, talking about Cuba, yeah. And I always admire your technique, and this is something that not only me but several people did the same. And I still remember the one time that I played for you, and you were telling me, "No, Rosie, you were playing too many notes," and I look at you like, "What?" I think I was playing Albani's the Iber Book 1 for you, and I said, "I'm so tired by the end." And so you sat down and demonstrated, which totally changed my perspective of how to approach certain technical issues. So talk to us about the education, music education in Cuba, the influences that you had, the teachers that you had, and how that prepared you to this world career that you have right now.
Well, I want to say that there was in Cuba a big tradition of pianists. There was I can say a strong school of many old pianists, if you want to say it like that, from the European tradition of France, and there was a very important pedagogue, and her name was Margot Rojas, and I think she studied in Paris or in Germany, but that wasn't my time. Around the time I started studying music, Cuba, which is or was and still is a socialist country, we had many Russian teachers for everything, for solfege, for piano. It influenced many aspects of Cuban culture, such as ballet, circus, anything. So I remember from my childhood having two teachers, one very important that was the one that put my hands on the piano. Her name is Lucia Wong. And simultaneously, I had to take once a week a piano lesson with one of the Russian advisors. So you absorb all of that so early that it's hard for me to think how it evolved. I do have to say that when I was around 14 or 15, I had a crisis. Like the ways I was playing technically couldn't work anymore. I guess your bones grow. You are taller now, and your perspective of the keyboard, the feeling, everything is different. And there was a very important teacher also. Her name is Ileana Bautista, that refocused me on how to maneuver.
Is she in the United States now?
She's in Mexico now.
Okay.
She was in the United States for a while.
Yeah.
And then it changed the perspective of how I move around the piano. So yeah, there is a big influence absorbed from all my childhood, since I was 7 until I was 6, actually, until I was maybe 18, that we had Russian teachers. My last Russian teacher was, his name is Stanislav Pochekin. He lives now in Barcelona. So even up to the last minute of my career, I still had Russian teachers, and Cuban teachers as well.
And what happened that, I also just heard your interview, one of your interviews, and you were talking about the competitions that you had, international competitions that allowed you to leave Cuba, and you went to Prague, and then you went to Mexico, Venezuela.
Absolutely.
And so can you talk about that, the competitions in general?
Yeah, there is a system, if you want to call it that way, that everybody around the country gets the same education. Even now, the buildings look the same. So when you are when you are a child, there are competitions for children, and I think they still exist, and they are national competitions. But there are also a system that allows the government to send competitors to international competition. So to be able to go to the international competition is not a personal decision. It has to be decided by the government based on your achievement and competition in Cuba. Once you win that competition, you can go to Czechoslovakia, you can go to because the government was paying for everything. So I was lucky. I won the preliminaries, if you want to call it that way, when I was 16 or 17, and I went to Czechoslovakia. It was my very first time outside the country. I went to the Smetana piano competition in Hradec Králové in the Czech Republic. And then the following year, I was also in another preliminaries with people that were a little older than I was, and I went to Venezuela. That was the first time I went to the Teresa Carreño when I was probably 18, something like that.
So when that happens, do you have a teacher that goes with you, or they pay for you to go and then you go and represent the country?
The first time I was so young that they paid another teacher to go with me. The second time, at 18, I mean, I was still young, but I just went by myself. There was nobody. I mean, there were other, they selected 3. There were 3 Cuban competitors, but they were older than me. In a way, they could look after me. And also, I was 18, so we didn't go with anyone with us. But when I went to Czechoslovakia, it was in a way on my own. So I was very young. I didn't need someone older. Especially you're gonna land in Germany and go to Czechoslovakia. You know, by the time I met you, many years after that, I spoke no English. So how could I handle anything? But Venezuela is a country that speaks Spanish, so they figured that he can find his way around the airport, go to the hotel, do everything for the competition. He will be okay.
And so how is the educational system? When you are young, you are in the fine arts, and then basically your education is directed to music, or is that half and half, and you go straight from regular classes to music classes? How does that work in Cuba?
They select the kids based on the anatomy. For example, if you're too small and you want to study double bass, they may say no. So to enter the school, you have to prove at a certain age, you have to start at a certain age, that you are musical, that you probably have very good ear, that you have good rhythm, that your bones are going to develop very well. So once you enter that school, when you are in 3rd grade, is your world, because you go there at 8 a.m. and you don't leave until 6 p.m. because you get piano and then geography and then math, but you have music appreciation and you have choir. I mean, it's like a conservatory. It's very strict, and you get all your education there.
And you have the pianos to practice as well?
Well, in your house. In my case, I didn't have a piano. I did have a piano, but it was in a very bad shape. It was the piano that my mom used when she was a student. So I stayed in the school until 8, so I could practice 2 hours after.
How did you come to the piano? How did that happen?
My mother studied piano for 8 years. She was quite a very good sight reader. And I didn't see her play, but I saw the piano at home all the time. And I kept playing on it, and I kept singing. They had to put classical music LPs for me to sleep. They knew how to calm me down with music. So they figured I had an interest. So when I was 5, they put me to study with someone that had taught her. But that didn't last because the person passed away. It was a very elderly lady. And then when I was like 6 and a half, we heard about this conservatory that, I mean, if you don't hear about it on time, you miss it. You have to start at a certain age. So he took me to the school to take the test. You have to draw also. They put you, I don't know, a symphony, and you have to draw what your imagination leads you to do based on what you're hearing. They analyze everything. At least when I was a child, that was how it was. And I made it to the school. I passed, and I was so happy that the next year I could start in the conservatory school altogether.
And tell me, well, I know, but tell us about your path to the United States? Because I know Adonis is the coordinator for piano area, I think performance as well as community coordinator. You are keeping adding titles to your name as we were talking, but he is working at University of Alabama at Montgomery. I'm very glad that you were close to me, but at the same time, I know that you were at Southern Miss, and then you were in Mexico, and were invited to come to the United States, and then went to Rutgers. So how did that happen?
Okay, I finished my studies in Cuba, and I won several national competitions, and one of them, the prize was to go on a tour to Mexico. So I happened to win that one, and then I went to Mexico, and I stayed in Mexico for 2 years, and I figured I needed more instruction. So somebody recommended a great teacher that was living in Cuernavaca, and his name was Isvan Nadas. And I'm so honored. I was probably his last student. He was in his 70s, I think. I learned a lot of repertoire, and he was so generous, he didn't charge me. But he said, you have to come every Saturday, no matter what. Even if you're drunk, you have to come.
So you had to travel, and how far was it from your house?
It's like I had to take a bus, and it's like an hour and a half or something from Mexico City. I had to go every Saturday. I'm not a morning person. I had to be there at 8 or 9 a.m. So my Friday were like I wanted to do other things. I had to go to bed and go to see Isvan. And I studied with him for a while. Then when I was studying with him, something very strange happened. Dr. Waldorf, who has been one of Isvan's students, Dr. Stanley Waldorf, and Dr. J.D. went to Mexico, and I went to accompany some violinists because they were looking for, like doing a recruiting trip in Mexico. And then I accompanied the two instrumentalists, and then they asked me if I could play, and I was ready. I was taking lessons with Isvan and everything. So I think I played Prokofiev 7 and the Prelude and Fugue, and I was honored that they offered me a scholarship. So I went from Isvan to a student of Isvan without, it was a magical coincidence.
And Istvan was a student of Bartók, right?
Istvan was a student of Bartók, yes.
Yeah. And do you know if he was the last student of Bela Bartók or somebody? No, you don't know that.
I don't know if it was the last, but I do know he was one of his piano students. He studied composition with Kodai also, but his piano teacher, his main piano teacher was Bartók. So that's how I arrived in the United States unexpectedly. They did all the paperwork really quick. I think it may have been like in August. No, like July. And in August, I was already in the United States with 0 English. And then on the studies of Stanley Waldorf, I won the Teresa Carreño this time, the second time I went. And I was about to quit, meaning like, okay, I'm done. I did my master's. This is so great. And I said, no, boy, you have to do a doctorate. So I auditioned for several universities in the north, Eastman and Rutgers. Then I decided to go to Rutgers and I studied there with Susan Starr. Mm-hmm. And I finished my doctorate there. And about the last year of my doctorate, I decided to attend Juilliard Evening Division for conducting, because I always wanted to conduct. So I did that simultaneously. Then I finished those studies and I stayed as a freelance in New York for quite a few years until I got offered the position here at Alabama State in Montgomery. I have been here now for 8 years. And yes, I'm the piano coordinator and the musicianship coordinator, and you keep adding responsibilities because you have to serve. So you have to wear so many hats, not just play.
Yeah, when I also took the Juilliard Evening Division, as I told you before, I was taking several different classes, and one was counterpoint, and there was a Cuban musician in the class, Yosvani. Uh-huh. And I hate doing that because everybody that sees a Brazilian, oh, do you know Rose? Brazil is so big, but I did it anyway. I came to him and I said, I have a dear friend called Adonis, and he said, oh, we were in school together. And like a month ago, I was in New York again in a Steinway event performing, and then Martin was there, Cuban, and I said, "Oh, by the way, I have a dear friend." We were in school together. So,
Martin is actually from Mexico, but he's as Cuban as I am. He knows all the slang. He studied in Cuba for a long time.
Yeah.
And he keeps in contact with Cuba somehow. He has so many Cuban friends.
Yeah, he told me he goes back there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Adonis, and again, what was, I think what I'm trying to do is for you as a teacher now, and for you as a pianist, what is your advice and how can somebody improve their technique? Because I think what we are facing now in America and all over the world too is people that do not have the patience anymore to study all the etudes, all the scales, all the sight reading. They want to be ready quickly because that's the society that we live right now. And the life of a pianist is very lonely. We stay in a room hours by ourselves, and not everybody is doing that anymore. So tell me a little bit of how you accomplish your technique and the type of study that you had, and what you would advise students should do to improve or become a better pianist.
It's hard to give advice because everybody is different. Something very funny is that I remember when I was like in high school, I was trying to get all the piano students to sign a letter against scales. Because every year, I think once a year, we have to do something that called the technical test, that you only play all the scales and one etude. And I was like, we don't need to play all the scales. And I was trying to make people to sign up for that against. But the truth is that since I was a child, I always learned all the etudes I could. And you have to learn two etudes each semester based on your age. I remember perfectly, for example, that when I was in 7th school grade, you had to play from Czerny 299, number 5, and number 9. And so there was always that. But I always learn all. I know the whole 299. And I think Czerny is the base of my technique in a way. And then when I went to the next level, again, you have to learn 2 Moskowski etudes. I know all the Moskowski etudes, and I know all the Chopin etudes. So part of it was taught, and some was self-acquired. You have to have that kind of curiosity. In Mexico, I learned almost all the transcendental etudes by list. And recently, I've been trying to finish the Rachmaninoff etude. I know a few, like 6, and I want to finish. Each one teaches you something about, and then you have to listen to your body to find your own way around the piano. Of course, there are some basics that you need to know about relaxation, about keeping the good sound, about balance and control. Each piece teaches you something different. But if I have a good technique, which I don't think about it, is because of all the technical studies that I have made on my own, all the pieces that I try to learn.
I studied with a lady that was private, but in a way, until since I was 6 until I was 15, and she followed the conservatory program, and so we had to do all the Bartók Microcosmos, and we had to play at least 16 a year, and then the same year you did the first Czerny volume 1, you had to do 16 as well a year, and then you did Clementi, and then we did Hanno. And then we did scales, and of course, 1 octave, 2 octaves, 3 octaves, contrary, parallel, chromatic, and thirds and sixths. But I really hated, but at the same time. And then we had to do 1 sonata, 1 form, 1 Brazilian. Brazilian was obligated to learn. And we had to learn a contemporary that could be anything, from Debussy to Shostakovich, anything. But that besides the technique. You know, so that was a year. And if you finish the program less than a year, you move on. But again, we don't see this anymore.
No, people don't. The programs are organized in a different way, and like you said, people don't have the patience to go through that drilling. But I didn't like, for example, I never did Hanon, and I was always again the scales. I needed to do something that had harmony. So I was happy learning all the etudes from Opus 299, then later on almost all from Opus 740. That
Yeah.
some of them are wonderful as concert pieces. Even.
They are.
And the Moskowski, I needed something with it. Like the Hanon was for me to try. I couldn't find myself going through the whole Hanon, for example.
And it's funny because now when I have time in the summer, I go back to the exercises and I try. We started with the Opus 100, you know, and then we build up to the 700s, and then the Clementi for left hand. There was a volume for Clementi left hand. So anyway, I think in a way there are two types of thoughts: that technique you learn through the literature, and technique you can learn through the etudes. And I personally, I'm with you. I think we have to have the curiosity and always look for that. And you are right. Each body is different than the other, but the key is relaxation.
Absolutely. Relaxation would connecting the ear to the brain to make the sound that you really want. That's technique. It's not only being able to play fast and with facility. It's connected to so many things. Because if you are not listening correctly, you may be playing too heavy. I'll give you an example: the Pfefferle, the etude by Liszt.
Yeah,
it's hard if you don't play light enough. There is a sensation of the hand that allows you to play those double notes at that speed, for example.
Yeah, I'm recently. Well, I played that when I was my sophomore level, and I remember struggling with the 6. My hands are always small. And now this summer I decided to go back to the Chopin, especially the thirds, and go back to the double notes. But anyway, another thing that this interview is about is we always start with piano, and then our lives change, and all of a sudden you're doing so many other things. You are, as you said, you are wearing so many hats at your department. I never thought, I would do certain things like raise money to buy new pianos, and here I am raising money to buy new pianos for the department. I had to open a conservatory because here in the region there were none. So different things that you do, and I can see now that you have become a conductor and you have become a composer. I heard your epilogue and prologue, and I loved, and you just told me that it's not written, it was an improvisation that they recorded.
Yes.
It's beautiful, and it's just gorgeous what you've done, and I never thought you could improvise, and here you are. So tell me more how your career had opened up to all those different things.
I always improvised and composed. One of my teachers in Cuba, his name was Cesar Lopez. He used to ask me, or like he would put a theme or a color. Okay, let's say it's orange. Can you play something that sounds orange? And I would improvise. I always, it was normal to me. And during those years, I composed some pieces for piano. Some of them got recorded recently. I made arrangement of them for one of the films that I needed music, and I didn't have any music, so I thought of those early pieces and made it for a string quartet. They saved my life. But I always had that curiosity. The conducting, like I said, I studied it in Juilliard, and also during my years in New Jersey, I was the music director of a church. So for some special events like Christmas or something, I needed an ensemble. So that was my time to be able to practice in front of a real ensemble. And I had to sometimes do things with the choir as well. So I never lived in myself. The piano, in a way, is an orchestra. So after you're playing all those Beethoven sonatas, you can imagine what would be conducting it. And I just have let that voice in me lead me to try to expand my career into different avenues, like composing. And I compose the music for 2 art films. One is called Limbo, the other is called Behind the Wall. I composed a piano concerto that was premiered in Costa Rica by the National Symphony of Costa Rica. A quartet that I think will be premiered in New York in August, a string quartet, a trio, and I made arrangements of so many things. Even when I play my own Cuban music, I always make arrangements. One of my arrangements was recorded by Paquito D Rivera in his CD Jazz Class, and that was nominated for the Grammys. And
let's stop a little bit and talk about that, because I also would like to talk about your partnership with Paquito. Paquito de Rivera is one of the most famous musicians nowadays, and I always admire his musicianship, but mainly he always tries to bring the African jazz influence in his music and all that. So talk more about that, Adonis.
Well, he was a huge influence around the time I was in New Jersey, because he called me to play with him, but he sees music as an entity, that there is bad music and good music. So he's, to me, the best crossover artist I know. He can play Mozart like a god, and then he can play jazz like there is no tomorrow, or Cuban music. He had even CDs of Brazilian music. So to play with him, there was always a part where he would put down his clarinet and you are on your own. I remember once I was playing with him in New York, and then he put the clarinet down and sat on the audience, like, you're on your own, meaning improvise. So that built some confidence in my improvisational skills. And I remember I started doing it live. When I played with the Stuttgart Symphony Orchestra, I played several anchors after the performance. It was Rhapsody in Blue, and the last anchor was an improvisation. I dared to do it publicly, and I have done it several times. I have done it also in festivals in Colombia. It's just the spur of the moment to create a piece. It's not just improvisation. It's just improvisation. It's very eclectic, like epilogue and prologue. That is just a piece. So, and composition is nothing else than organized improvisation. You improvise, and then you organize it the best possible way, because you don't have time to organize it that way when you are improvising live. And then you start finding solutions for the motives, or developing some motives. You are not in a rush, so you can say, well, how about if I go in this direction with this motive, or I explore more this little rhythmic motive? I can be. You could be a B section. You have more time to think about it, and it's a process that I really enjoy. I don't necessarily think I'm a composer. I'm just a musician.
Yeah, I'm just doing some arrangements now of Brazilian music, and there are some parts that I am also composing, but I'm not as an improviser. I can't improvise because I'm thinking too hard. I think my brain gets in the way, and that's the process of improvisation. You have to trust.
You have to trust.
Yeah. And you always have to let the brain in a way work, but then comes to a point that it has to shut down and let the...
Well, it's a complex thing, because you have the idea, but the problem is that you have to execute it in less than a second.
Yeah.
You don't have time to think, I'm going to do, it's all happening at the spur of the moment. You have to be able to react to your ideas and develop them. You have to have the technique to feel comfortable to do whatever idea comes to your mind. And if you don't do what you thought, you have to react to it in a musical way to make the mistake be a new motive for a new thing. So it's so freeing, especially on the adrenaline. When you do it live, it's like, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were, in a way, nominated twice for the Grammys, one for the Latin Grammy with your solo CD, And the one with partnership where you played with Paquito D Rivera.
Yeah, that's what it was nominated. My debut album was for the Latin Grammys, but Paquito's was for the Grammys, not the Latin Grammys.
Like the big Grammys, right? Yeah. Did you attend the ceremony?
I didn't. I attended the Latin Grammys. It was amazing. It was in Las Vegas, and imagine all those people and the red carpet. I think that year was a green carpet, not a red carpet, and all kind of events from people from all walks of life, meaning Dudamel or Usher. I mean, there were classical musicians and people from pop, and there was an homage to Shakira. It was an amazing 4 or 5 days in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I always cheer for you. I always admire your musicianship, and I always see you as a true musician, because a true musician is what you're doing right now. You do a lot of things, including teaching. So let me ask you about your future plans. I know that you mentioned that you were traveling in July after the pandemic, that you've been basically just teaching online. Mm-hmm. But in July, you're going to be traveling. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, in July, I will be conducting in Vienna. This year is the 100th anniversary of a Viennese composer. His name is Alexander von Zemlinsky. There are many Viennese composers around the era of Mahler that they are not that popular, but they are wonderful composers. And the Viennese or the Austrian always honor them. For example, a few years ago, I conducted there a piece by another Viennese composer. That was his 100th anniversary. His name was von Einem, was the last name. So this year is the 100th anniversary of this composer, so I will be doing one of his pieces for Esslingen Orchestra. It's this festival that they have I would say, a small orchestra, but because of the COVID, it's even smaller. So they are not going to have any brass, they are not going to have any woodwinds, it's all strings. So this piece that I will conduct is very appropriate for the moment. So
it's just strings or strings and piano, or just
strings, just pure strings, yes. So that's coming up, and I think in September comes up a CD I recorded recently with a wonderful clarinetist. His name is Osiris Molina. We recorded what we may think, or he, because he was the one that had the idea for the project, are the most important pieces for clarinet, the most important Cuban pieces for clarinet up to a certain era. So we recorded a CD completely of Cuban music for piano and clarinet, including some pieces from Paquito De Rivera, and some pieces by Andrés Salén, which is a wonderful composer, Cuban composer, Leo Brouwer.
Hey, Leo Brouwer, yeah.
So that's coming up, I think, in September. So we probably have to do some kind of event for the, for the coming out of the CD.
And this clarinetist is one of your colleagues or somebody from?
I work at Alabama State. He worked at University of Alabama. But there are many coincidences. His parents are Cuban, and he grew up in the area where I studied in New Jersey.
Is he from Tuscaloosa?
Yes.
Well, I work with his wife. I work with his wife. Well, I work with I've played the Hindemith, two piano sonatas there with the piano chair, Kevin Chance. And his wife teaches in the education here at my university, and she does a lot of online. In Molina, when you said his name, I said, it can't be two different people.
Molina. Yeah, I haven't met her, but yes, I know they moved there, and I think he was born in New Jersey, and we have so many New Jersey friends in common. It was also a coincidence.
Yeah, it's the world is getting smaller and smaller. That's for sure.
You know him too.
Adonis, I remember you playing the Prokofiev. Oh my goodness, so many other things. And in the general repertoire, do you have any idea how much you know or how much you have played in repertoire, piano literature only? I'm not talking about chamber music.
I don't know. I was thinking, for example, concertos. I think I know. I was thinking about it the other day. I know both Liszt concertos and Rachmaninoff 2, 3, and Rhapsody, but I haven't played the Rhapsody with orchestra. Prokofiev 1, 3, and 5. I learned 5 this summer.
5 is rarely played.
My second is my favorite, but I don't know it. It's hard to tell a bunch of Mozart concertos because nothing gives me more pleasure than playing Mozart concertos. I mean, I have played Rachmaninoff with orchestra. It's all wonderful. Nothing for me gives me more pleasure than playing any of the concertos.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I played the 9th concerto in Mississippi once, and then I played the 21st a few times, and the 25th, and the 27th, both in Vienna, and I know the 23rd. I mean, I know a few of those. Beethoven, I studied all 5 with Susan Starr, but I have only played in public 3 and 4.
Lately, what I started doing was instead of using the cadenzas, I just make my own cadenza.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Do you do that?
I do that because the first time I went to a festival in Vienna, I took a small course of how to do cadenzas in the Mozart way. I was playing number 27 that first time. And since then, I have always tried to do my own. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny.
I try to stick to the rules, to try to make it how he would do it. That doesn't sound too overly romantic and too, like what he could do more or less. And to make a differentiation between the cadenza and an Eingang in the rondo. That is just a short thing to lead again to the A section of the rondo.
The bridge, yeah.
Yeah, that little bridge has a different kind of harmonical setting, and you cannot go all the way out unless there is a real cadenza, like in Beethoven Concerto No. 4, there is a real cadenza at the end. Not as big as the first one, as the one in the first movement. But yeah, I try to abide to the rules, but I also make my own. With Beethoven, there is no need. I mean, those are wonderful cadenzas. I wasn't very happy with the cadenza of the 3rd because it has so many arpeggios. But then I still do it that way. I don't dare. I'm gonna do my own now, and of course, like Rachmaninoff said, you just play what is written.
Yeah, yeah. In the you were just talking that you just played all the etudes and Beethoven sonatas and Mozart sonatas. I've heard you playing. But the reason that I'm asking you this question is. I don't know if you agree with me, but learning is a process that will never end.
Oh, absolutely.
And you have to constantly learn. You always have to come to a point where you have to say, well, this summer I'm going to learn this, or next month I'm going to push myself to learn that, and it is always very hard, especially teaching, especially in the pandemic with the computer. We spend more time in the computer than at the piano. So is this something that you advise to musicians to always do, to always make a project and make yourself learn new music all the time?
I don't think you ever finish learning. I mean, it's like endless. And especially in our field as pianists, there is so much repertoire, there is no way to manage everything. Just 10 violins and piano sonatas by Beethoven, we have 32. I mean, it's like every time they have one violin concerto, we have 5. I mean, there is no way we can catch up. And so that's endless. And also learning new repertoire affects how you play the other things. You will learn new things from the new things they are learning that change the way you look at all things. Like pieces you may have played 10 years ago, you look at it different now. Oh, how I didn't think of this earlier, that I could do it this way or something.
Yeah, in when you accompanying people, because that's another part of our profession, you have always to have an excellent sight reading skills, because sometimes you just put the score in front of you and go ahead and play, and they assume that you're going to be playing as good as if you had time to learn. So there's several skills that we have to develop as a pianist, besides teaching, besides conducting, arranging. So in the chamber music, what gives you more pleasure? And this is a personal question. Is that giving a solo performance or a chamber music performance or conducting? Do you have a preference?
No, in a way, it comes down to the feedback I get from the people I'm collaborating with. It could be a very happy experience or a very sour experience, but yeah, I don't have any preference. As long as you are making music and you are able to stay in the moment, I think it's very enjoyable. I don't prefer conducting over performing solo. I no. But what I can say, and I will repeat it again, nothing is more pleasurable than hearing the woodwinds and everything of a Mozart concerto, and you are making a single line. It's so transparent. There is no a whole bunch of notes that you have to show off. It's just chamber music in a grand scale. And to me, that's
I agree. I one time somebody asked me, why do you play so much Mozart? But there's no other thing than being in a Mozart concerto. It's just it's like it's so transparent at the same time. It's so every note has its place. So I think Andrea's in the background. I really would like for us to show your Rachmaninoff, the D sharp minor. And I think, I hope Andrea can put it for us to watch.
Didn't work.
I don't know. let me go back to the private chat, but I'm hoping that it would. No, not that. Okay, that one. Yeah.
So it should be right.
Beautiful, beautifully done. And what a wonderful way that he did in recording you. Adonis, you are in mute.
I cannot thank him enough. I mean, Rey Rodriguez, I mean, there was a state-of-the-art camera that could go above you and do all this. And he listened to the piece, and then he knew what he wanted to do with the camera. It wasn't random. Like this part that is doing an accelerando, I can go above, or this part that is more, I'm gonna keep. Everything was conceived visually by him.
And who is Rey?
Well, Rey, besides being like a brother to me, we studied together in Cuba. He lives in Germany. He has been in Germany for more than 20 years. He was working as a dancer and singer and everything. He was a musical star in Germany. And then at some point he decided he didn't want to do that anymore, and he became a producer. He has done quite many productions for different things. For Cuban music, for pop music, for singers that are from Holland and everything he does, because he was a musical star. He has the perspectives of a dancer, or someone that is from the theater, he was a percussionist, so he had all those. He has control of those disciplines. So he has become now a quite successful producer, and he decided to do this just small, like I said, and then he was adding things. Well, maybe we can have a white background. Well, we can have maybe a camera that can move through the music. Maybe we can, and maybe, and became this wonderful project that is I'm very proud of, and I can not thank him enough for.
It was really, really beautifully done. The cover of your CD is beautifully done. You can tell that it's not something put together, but it's something that was thought. There's a thought behind that. My friend, I miss you. I really miss you.
We have to see each other in person soon.
Yeah, we do. And I can't thank you enough, because you were my savior. I couldn't find anybody to play the Guarneri concerto.
I still remember it.
Yeah, I couldn't find anybody, and you said, "Oh, I can do this." Yes.
Wow. Yes, that was such a great experience. You played it wonderfully, and I still think of it. I was thinking of it the other day, something like.
Yes, that's it.
I was thinking about it the other day, kind of dancing, and it came to my mind.
Yeah, well, we need to do something together, or I need to have you here. I just love you to death, and I wish you all the best. You are a successful musician. You are a successful pianist, and I know your students should be thankful to have you as a teacher, because your experience and your background is humongous. And here you are, planting your seed as a teacher, as an educator as well. So thank you very much. I still remember you, we speaking in Spanish.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you very much, Adonis. Stay with us. Andrea is going to close the interview.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Adonis. I hope to see you playing live. And thank you very much for sharing with us your life, your music, your brilliant art. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Muito obrigada a todos vocês que estiveram conosco. O Piano e Suas Perspectivas é um programa da Escola de Música e Artes Cênicas e a Reitoria Digital da Universidade Federal de Goiás, juntamente com a Mississippi State University, com o apoio da Fundação para Ciência e Tecnologia de Portugal, Centro de Estudos de Sociologia e Estética Musical da Universidade Nova de Lisboa, Centro de Estudos Brasileiros, Rádio Universitária e Rádio Brasil Central FM. Fazem parte da equipe do programa Além de Mim, a Maria Caroline Porto, Pablo Lisboa, Rosângela Yasbeck Sebas, Sérgio de Paiva e Wesley de Menezes. The Piano and Its Perspectives is a program of the School of Music and Performing Arts, Digital Department of the Federal University of Goiás and the Mississippi State University, with support from the Foundation for Science and Technology of Portugal, Center for Studies in Sociology and Musical Aesthetics of the University of Lisbon, Center for Brazilian Studies, Radio Universitária, and Radio Brasil Central FM. Besides me, Maria Caroline Porto, Pablo Lisboa, Rosângela Yasbeck Seba, Sérgio de Paiva e Wesley de Menezes are part of the program's team. So thank you very much and see you next week.